What's up everybody, BigSweetC here with you. Got a special little video for you today. First and foremost, I want to wish everybody out there a very happy holiday. It is January 1st today, so we have made it to the new year. Happy New Year to everybody. It is 2021. We can finally put behind the shite show that was 2020 and hopefully push forward into the future. I hope all you guys are being safe out there and keeping yourself healthy as we push into the near future after what was one of the weirdest years in my 38 years of existence, going on 39 here pretty soon. So crazy year last year in a lot more ways than one, but we're gonna focus on the good stuff today by celebrating our top 5, at least my top 5 from the year 2020. Now I've revamped the rules and regulations a little bit because I kind of do, just to kind of fit what I feel is necessary for each individual year. And this year I kind of wanted to focus on the games that I played the most of. So what we're considering a contender for Game of the Year is something that I played a lot of in 2020. So maybe I started it in 2019, played a little bit of it and never really got through it. Maybe it just came out in 2020. Maybe we started it technically in December of 2019. We played the bulk of it in 2020, that kind of thing. So I have narrowed it down, and it actually was kind of tough this year. Not gonna lie, kind of surprised considering in my opinion, it wasn't that great of a year for new video games. So, but to this channel, to me as a gamer, I've narrowed it down to the top 5, and we're going to kickstart it right now with number 5. Coming in at number 5 is Obsidian's game Grounded. Now, a lot of the reason why I like this game quite a bit is because I do get to play with my wife. However, it is a lot more than that. I'm a huge fan of the survival games. I'm a big Minecraft fan for as little as we play it on the channel. But I really love the settlement building in the Fallout games. I love the survival aspect and the settlement building combination in Minecraft. And then on top of this, Grounded goes ahead and brings in an extra layer of activity and fun as it puts you in a Honey, I Shrunk the Kids-esque backyard survival game. And it adds in that twist of not really knowing how you got where you're going, trying to figure out where to find information on how to get out of where you're at, all that kind of stuff, along with the whole base building and survivor in the backyard mode. It is a super fun time. The fact that it's free on Game Pass, it's also cross-platform compatible, makes it all that much better in my opinion, because I can play with a large array of friends. Fortunately, maybe not the guys over on PlayStation for the time being, but at some point in time, maybe like Call of Duty, that will also be fixed and rectified. But coming in at number 5, a fantastic time. The reason I couldn't probably put it that much higher is because it's an uncompleted game, and the end has a lot to do with whether or not I like a video game. So not having seen the end-all be-all of it, it's hard to put it really any higher than 5. But I think 5 is a pretty good spot for it as an uncompleted, technically pre-release game. The fact that you can play it for free on Xbox Game Pass just makes it all the more worth it to put it on the list. At number 4 is probably what's quickly becoming, in my opinion, From Software's best game. Sekiro Shadows Die Twice is my number 4 game of 2020. We really got into it a lot at the beginning of the year. We put a lot more into it kind of within the recent last couple of weeks, trying to get all the achievements for it, all the different endings. And while I'm still stuck on that second playthrough, it is an absolutely fantastic game, and probably From Software's creme de la creme, best of the best. The thing I love about the From Software games is the challenge in it, and through the Dark Souls series you kind of see limitations on its ability to be that type of game, where it offers a challenge to those of us who know what we're doing, while also simultaneously being conquerable enough for those who haven't played and don't really know what's going on to not struggle too much. Well, the beauty of Sekiro is it throws all that out the window, and it expects you to be an adult when you play this video game. If you don't take the time to learn how to play, you're not going to be successful. And to me, that is a fantastic quality in this game. The scenery is beautiful. The setting is fantastic. An old style Japanese samurai setting. One of my favorite games in this type of genre that I've ever played. And while it is ungodly in terms of aggravating at certain points, the feeling of accomplishment I haven't felt since maybe the first time I played Dark Souls 2 and was able to really get somewhere in the game, because it is a struggle at first, and you do have to kind of learn how to play the game. It's very different than any of the Dark Souls games that I'm used to, because, and I've said this before, I said this about Bloodborne, I am a block and counter type of player. You don't get that option in Sekiro because you don't really have a block. There's no shield. You do have your prosthetic arm, but every time you block instead of parry, you take significantly more stamina damage, and you just open yourself up for more critical hits. Now, the reason that that's such a big deal for me is because I am I just go up and wait for them to attack and then counter. I have to be more specific with my timing, and it's super aggravating when it doesn't work, but it is incredibly fun when you do get the timing down and it does go the way that you want. I was thinking about this, and I'd probably have this a little bit higher on my list had it not been so difficult. But the truth is, a lot of it is based on timing, and I feel that sometimes the timing isn't as appropriate as it should be. Even though I'm playing on a PC with a 1080 graphics card, I still get those moments of what feel like lag, or when the frame rate stutters, and other times it'll look like, or it'll sound, I'll make the sound that I got the parry, but I'll still take that significant stamina damage, so I don't think it's exactly perfect. Another thing that kind of kept it a little bit lower is I had played it before. So again, the majority of what I played was this year. That's why it qualifies this game. But it didn't have as much newness to it as it did last year when I had played it for the first little bit. That is not to take away anything from this game. I think From Software put out an amazing game, and if it was put out this year, I think it would have won Game of the Year this year, just like it did last year or 2 years ago, whichever it was when it did release. I think it's a fantastic game, but it didn't have that new car smell, and I think that kind of held it back just a little bit. The other thing that kind of held it back was it was ungodly difficult for me, and it still is. But fantastic game, and I look forward to playing even more of it, as we still have 2 other endings to go through. When we get to the third game, this is what really actually kind of surprised me a lot. I really expected this game to kind of be higher than it was, and so it kind of surprised me that this one came at number 3, and I'm talking about The Last of Us 2. I have said this from the absolute beginning. I think the gameplay is phenomenal. When I'm actually getting to creep around and hide from dogs and attack slavers, free infected to then terrorize the people that are chasing me, the gameplay, the mechanics, the leveling system, absolutely out of this world. They did a fantastic job with it in The Last of Us. They did a fantastic job just kind of smoothing it out and making it better in The Last of Us 2. But the reality is, I was kind of let down with the story. I've tried to give it its time in the sun, and I understand what they were doing. I can appreciate what they were attempting to do, but it just seems like a convoluted, woke kind of jargon gurgled out at me. I feel like I'm not being taught a lesson, I'm being spoon-fed propaganda. And the reason I feel that way is, we've discussed this before, Abby and Ellie are essentially the same character. You're watching essentially the exact same story between the two of them play out simultaneously. Now, I'm all about having multiple characters in multiple games, but I don't want a story just for story's sake. I want the story to be something. I don't need to be told that everybody is good, everybody is bad, everybody has feelings, everybody has friends, everybody deserves justice. I'm 38 years old. I've known this for the last 38 years. You know, like, it's not a new story. It's not a woke story. It's not an enlightening story. It is a bunch of random people that don't necessarily get the same amount of spotlight as others because of biases towards sexes, biases towards sexual preferences, biases towards religious ideology. I know all this. Sometimes I just want a good story. I've discussed this many times, you could have kept a ton of stuff differently. You could have done a ton of stuff differently, and I think it would have been the exact same feeling. I think it would have been an even stronger case because it would have been one coherent story instead of having so many unnecessary characters. And I'm not going to go into all that nonsense because I've done it already several times. But I do want to say that this was not as good as I had hoped it was going to be. Not to say that, again, I didn't like it a lot. It's actually probably the one game that I've been the most back and forth on. I absolutely love to play it, absolutely bored out of my mind while playing it. It seems like the biggest dichotomy, but I don't want to scare anybody away from playing it because it's phenomenal. It is an absolute excellent game with just kind of a mediocre story, and that's okay. That's okay. The first one, the story was so good that it's almost impossible to realistically expect it to be as eye-opening or as, again, new car smellish as the first one. It'd be unrealistic for me to expect it to be that kind of enlightenment, that kind of edification, if you will, from a video game. But it was also pretty disappointing, and so that's why it finds itself at number 3 as opposed to maybe even higher up. But that does not mean that The Last of Us 2 was a bad video game. It is still in my top 5 for very good reason, because it definitely deserves to be there. At number 3 is Naughty Dog's The Last of Us 2. The bigger surprise, and I cannot tell you how much I actually kind of struggled with this. I sat here and I wondered to myself, am I really about to put this game above The Last of Us 2? Does it deserve to be up there? But I honestly think Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order is definitely better than The Last of Us 2. It goes a lot along the lines of expectations. Now, I thought that they could make a pretty decent, cool game, fun to play, should be a good time for a little bit. But the truth is, it blew me away. This game was absolutely phenomenal from start to finish. The way that it incorporated kind of a Star Wars The Force Unleashed third-person fighting game with a Dark Souls parry and timing system. The way your Jedi powers grew, your ability with the lightsaber, your health and vitality, the way you could upgrade your weapons, and the gadgets that your little BD-8 dude had with you. It was done so well and so to perfection. It looked beautiful. It played beautiful. I had no qualms whatsoever with lag or frame rates or anything to that effect. It ran flawlessly on the Xbox One. And I had zero pre-knowledge about this game. It was a crazy coincidence that my brother happened to bring it up to me. He bought it randomly on a whim, and the game was phenomenal. I saw almost no advertising for it until well after it had already done super well in sales. And so it just goes to show that a good game does not need a lot of hype. A good game will naturally hype itself, and that's exactly what this was. Me going in expecting kind of a mediocre EA game, I end up getting EA's best game in years, decades, maybe ever. This might be EA's best game they have ever created. And I'm including the original Maddens that were revolutionary in sports games. This game was phenomenal. Now, I couldn't quite put it at number one because it is kind of a short story. It follows Cal, and I think it's a fantastic story of a guy who's struggling what to do after the Execute Order 66 took place. But I was kind of expecting with the success of it, there might be some DLC. Now, speculation, word on the street is they're making a part 2. And I hope they really do, because I will be the first in line to pick that guy up. But I was kind of expecting a little bit more, and so it kind of fell to the wayside. And I think this is also what kind of, when I went back to reevaluate the games for this year, made me question if I was really putting it this high. But without a doubt, having gone back and replayed it recently to record footage for this video, absolutely deserves the spot at number 2. Had it been one of those games where it kind of ran the test of time, if you will, it might have been able to take number 1 spot, but it wasn't quite as good as the old number 1. Number 2 ain't bad for Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. As we get to the number 1 game in my top 5 list of 2020, you guys are probably thinking, why did I just wait 19 minutes to hear what I already knew from 6 months ago? But you're right. As cliche as this is going to say, and as fanboy as you can call me for saying it, Final Fantasy VII Remake is my top pick for 2020. In my opinion, this game blew everything away. And going back and replaying this game for some footage here, it's no wonder why this was the only game that I got the Platinum Trophy for this year, because it is absolutely stunning. It looks beautiful. The story, the way they have recreated the story in this game, they've gone into more depth of it. They've expanded and redone the grammatical translation. It plays out better, more like the Loveless play that it's quote unquote based on in the Final Fantasy world. The way they've redesigned the characters, not just from a look standpoint, but also from a character standpoint. The way they've redone certain enemies into boss fights. The way they've completely redesigned the traditional Japanese turn-based RPG with this super fast-paced, always on the move, but yet still turn-based Japanese RPG. From top to bottom, this game was everything I expected, maybe even more. I actually was kind of expecting more of a standard cookie cutter remaster, not a remake. What we got was a remake, and it was even better than the remaster that I was expecting. The way they've redone Cloud's character, but stuck with the idea of PTSD with our veterans. The way Wall Market is even more resembling of Wall Street, and how Midgar is such a representation of what the Japanese think of New York City and American society in general, of that capitalistic ideology of corporations running everything. Not just the day-to-day, but even so much as the president of the Shinra Corporation being in the bigger hierarchy than the mayor of Midgar. The idea of what we do with climate change, how we treat people with different abilities, who we believe are the general inheritors of the planet. This game speaks on so many more levels now than when it did in 1997 when it was originally released, because we weren't talking about those issues like we're talking about them now. And for them to be able to reimagine it in a way that is even clearer to understand than the traditional Japanese RPGs that were all over the place in grammatical errors, it is such an achievement. You would expect it after about 10 years of waiting around trying to figure out what was going on. But the way they've redesigned summons and materia, all of it, the way you can upgrade your weapons now, the way you earn limit breaks, it's a complete redesign, and it's given it that new car smell while at the same time reminding us of those big issues that this game does so well in talking about. It's given me a lot of excitement, a lot of hype, a lot of hope for the future versions, and what originally I thought might be 2 or 3 games, I can see now being 5, 6, maybe 7 if they decide to incorporate Advent Children and Crisis Core lore into this game as well. I'm super excited for the Chocobo races. I'm super excited to see that how they come around and they play out Zack's character. Can we play as Sephiroth? How are they going to incorporate Yuffie, Sid, Vincent, the world map? This is just a small sampling, and it's already given me chills about what this game can become. And for that reason alone, it's worth a spot in the top 5. Add in the fact that this is the one game that I'm always thinking about going back and replaying. Now I know I go back and I replay Dark Souls, what seems like a lot, but I can play those with friends, which is what keeps them going. This one is a single player RPG that I still want to just consistently play all the time, even though I know I'm not going to get to play with anybody. I'm always figuring it out. I'm always learning how to be better with the game. Like I was saying with Sekiro, if you don't know how to play this game, you're not going to get through it on hard mode. Maybe you go through on easy and you just blast everybody away. Maybe you even figure out how to play on normal difficulty because of the fact that you can get items, and items can literally make or break your team. But if you want to play this game the way it's supposed to be played on hard difficulty, you're going to have to know how to play or you're going to get wiped out. There's certain boss fights where you have to follow a specific routine. If you don't, the enemy is going to blow you away. There's different fights for different areas, and the way the story has been reimagined, you don't always get the option on your team anymore. So you have to know what everybody does. You have to know what these character pros and cons are. It is simultaneously unbelievably immersive, but also your own development of each character. Whose books, manuscripts do you go after? Whose equipment do you upgrade? How do you upgrade them as you go along? Now, eventually you max everything out, but by the time you get there, if you don't know what you're doing, you're not going to get there. It's been absolutely phenomenal, and it's got me so excited to see where it's going that it had to be number one. And call me a fanboy all that you want, you can call me a weebo all that you want, but in 2020, in my opinion, there was nothing that had as much hype that delivered as well as Final Fantasy VII Remake. There was nothing that had such a good story and such a good gameplay, game mechanics, as Final Fantasy VII. I haven't played Ghost of Tsushima yet, so I'm not sure how that plays out. But we've talked about how The Last of Us 2 kind of failed on that writing level, in my opinion, but how I think that everybody loves the gameplay of Ghost of Tsushima, same like Sekiro. Loved the gameplay of Sekiro, but it didn't quite have that story aspect that I can relate to on so many different levels as Final Fantasy VII Remake. That's why it deserves the number one spot. But do yourself a favor, do myself a favor, hit that like button, hit that sub button, hit that notification bell. If you got a problem with what I decided to choose as my top 5, do me a favor, drop a comment below, tell me where I went wrong. If you liked what I said, give me that thumbs up, tell me what you enjoyed about it. What was your top 5? Where did The Last of Us 2 fall on your list? Did any of these guys surprise you? Let me know in the comments below, because I generally want to know what you guys feel. Also gives me a good idea of what we should get into in the following year. I know there's a couple of games that we still haven't played yet, like Cyberpunk, Assassin's Creed Valhalla. We will get to those at some point, but I kind of want to know where you guys are at as well. If you want to know a little bit more about my personal life, you want to know a little bit more about my political side, you can find me on Instagram or Twitter at BigSweetC. You want some more live streams, I'm also over on Twitch at BigSweetC as well. Either way, that's going to do it for this one. BigSweetC, that's me. Wishing YouTube, that's you. Wonderful day, night, morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time of day it might be. As long as you're watching, I'm wishing you a wonderful watching time. Sweetness, signing off. Peace.